Thanks for tuning in. We have a great one today. We're going to be talking about the top 10 games I played growing up as a kid in the 90s. There were so many great titles, so many franchises that are birthed in the 90s. Today we get to discuss my favorites. So sit back, grab a snack, and let's get started. Now first I want to mention some honorable mentions because there were so many great titles that I had to unfortunately leave off this list. So I'm just going to read a few of them off of my phone now. First we have Sonic 2, first game I ever played, amazing title. Metal Gear Solid 1, one of my favorite games of all time. Resident Evil 3, Nemesis, classic. Streets of Rage, I put so many hours with co-op on the couch with my friends, couch co-op. No Mercy would also probably be on that list, and WrestleMania 2000, 1080 snowboarding, and Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. And last but not least, we have Croc. Love that game. One of the first PC games I ever played. Now with those quick honorable mentions out of the way, we're going to jump right into number 10, and that's going to be Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. Now growing up, I only had access to a Super Nintendo at my dad's house. He had the Super Nintendo, I had the Sega Genesis at my mom's house that was passed down to me, so that was my primary console. Well, you could say my first console, but every summer I'd go to my dad's. My parents were separated, so I'd spend the summers with him and I would play Super Nintendo with my brother all summer long. And one of the titles we played the most was Super Mario World. I mean, you talk about one of the greatest platformers of all time, introducing Yoshi, one of my favorite characters. We would spend endless hours trying to find all the little secret routes, the secret levels to unlock, trying to unlock different colored Yoshis. I mean, this game was just a blast. I was a little bit better than my brother, so I remember like feeding him lives just to keep him in the game because I wanted someone to play with me. I remember always having to be the one to beat the ghost houses too because he was always too scared to beat him. So many great memories growing up with Super Mario World. Still a classic, and I think the best 2D Mario still to this day. At number 9, we're going to have Diddy Kong Racing for the N64. The game that was playing behind me. There it goes. Now, this is an underrated kart racer in my opinion. It had a little more variety than Mario Kart, and then it also had the boss fights, or boss races, I guess you could say. Whiz Pig, or whatever the main enemy was kind of a pain in the ass, so I do appreciate the difficulty of a lot of these bosses, but I just had so much fun playing this game. Being able to choose between a plane, a hovercraft, and a car on any level really made the gameplay a little more dynamic and gave the player a little more control, basically, of how they wanted to approach the level. For example, I used to love using the hovercraft on all the snow levels. Hovercraft was probably my favorite outside of a cart and the plane. Plane was always fun too, kind of wonky and hard to control at times, but Diddy Kong Racing is an absolute underappreciated gem on the N64, and I'll take the Pepsi Challenge with Mario Kart any day against this one. At number 8, we have Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped for the PlayStation 1. Now, you really can't go wrong with any of the original Crash Bandicoot games from the first trilogy. I mean, the first one was an absolute classic. The second one's pretty good, but out of the trilogy, it's probably my least favorite. And the third one is an absolute banger. I mean, this is when everything was taken to the next level. This is platforming on a 3D level at its peak. I mean, so much fun, so much personality, charm, and charisma with this game. Naughty Dog was on its come up, and they were reaching that plateau, that peak. They were peaking out and making a name for themselves in the gaming industry. Crash is an absolute icon, and the addition of it was like the jet ski and the plane, and of course the motorbike and the different characters that were introduced in this one as well. And of course, fighting Cortex and unlocking the secret levels and the time trials. It's just so good. Getting all the crystals. I mean, I absolutely love it. Still holds up to this day too. So check it out if you've never played it, Crash Bandicoot 3, Warped. Coming in at number 7, we have Star Fox 64. One of the best on-rail shooters I've ever played in my life. Not a huge fan of these normally, but I popped this in the other night and I beat the whole game. I meant to get like 15 minutes of footage and I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning playing this game. It is just so much fun. Taking the different routes, unlocking the different paths, getting the true ending, and getting to see your dad at the end was always so epic. And fighting Andros. Then you got Pepe and Falco, of course, and Slippy. Man, just such a classic game. I know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for the Super Nintendo one, and I have that one too. But the Nintendo 64 one just is top tier, and one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely adore Star Fox 64. And if you haven't played this one, it still holds up today. It's so much fun to play. The controls are great, in my opinion. And the gameplay is just top tier. It's just a blast. I can't really describe it any other way. Coming in at number 6, we have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 for the original PlayStation. This game alone is the single reason I wanted a PlayStation 1. I remember going over to my friend's house and we'd sneak into their older brother's room when they were out hanging out with their friends so we could play games we're not really supposed to, like Resident Evil. But we'd always play Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It made me want to become a skateboarder. I was rollerblading at the time, and I thought skateboarding was so cool just because of this game alone. I mean, Tony Hawk landing the 900. I witnessed all that stuff at the X Games, and this really took skateboarding to the next level and created an interest in skateboarding like we've never seen before. After a real drought in the 80s too, I mean, this really put skateboarding back on the map. And I wish that they would bring out a newer title. The remakes they made of 1 and 2, I have those for the PS4, I think. And they are great titles, but I would love to see them put out something new again. But I absolutely adore the first game. I mean, the soundtrack, the gameplay is just a whole lot of fun to play, especially co-op too, just switching back and forth, playing skate, seeing who can beat the highest score, doing all the weird, wacky missions. It's just an absolute classic. Coming in at number 5 is one of the greatest games of all time, in my opinion, and that's Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. This game was the game that made me feel like a gamer. This game put me on the map as a gamer, in my eyes. It was very challenging. I remember having to use a strategy guide. But I put countless hours into this game. I mean, beat it multiple times. And it was a long game, especially as a kid, too. Especially Majora's Mask was, too. But Ocarina of Time, I mean, the soundtrack, the level design, just the world building of this truly almost like an open world. I mean, it's linear, but it felt so big and epic at the time. And all the little secret just Easter eggs in the game and figuring out how to get Epona. I mean, you can't go wrong with this game. It is a masterpiece. Chef kiss. At number 4 is a game I currently don't own, and I know it's kind of a shocker, but the gameplay doesn't hold up quite as well as it used to, and that's going to be GoldenEye 007. This has to be on the list because me and my friends just put countless hours of couch co-op into this game. I mean, you talk about a revolutionary first-person shooter. In terms of storytelling and level design too, it was ahead of its class. Very challenging for the time as well, especially to get the higher ranking difficulties and the ending level with Trevor, or 006, or 008. I don't know which one he was. But anyways, he was a pain in the ass, especially the end where you had to drop down the ladder and land on the little platform. I remember getting to that part and just missing it so many times, getting so frustrated. But GoldenEye is an absolute gem. I need to get this game back and play through it again, just for old time's sake. Coming in at number 3, we have Mario Kart 64, a game that cannot be denied for the N64. I was an absolute dog in this game. I did not play around. I was very good at this game. Some of the time trials I set as a kid, I guarantee you I could not beat today, especially the level with the train. I remember all the little secrets, being able to cut through and go through this little train tunnel, and the Rainbow Road one where you can jump across and hop over there. And I would do that for all 3 laps and do it in like under a minute or some nonsense. Man, it still holds up today too. I have the Japanese version, so that's why it's not playing right now. I have to get the little adapter installed so I can play my Japanese games. You can't have a list of most played games in the 90s and not include Mario Kart 64. It's a masterpiece. At number 2, we have Super Mario 64, the game that set the world on fire when the Nintendo 64 came out. You could not go to Walmart, Target, why am I drawing a blank? Kmart, Best Buy, GameStop, Electronic Boutique, you name it. They would have the little kiosk set up with this game. It was intoxicating. It was everywhere you want. Every kid in the world wanted a Nintendo 64. I remember pestering my best friend in elementary school, Ben Austin, every day. Hey, how do you beat Bowser on this level? How do you get this star? How do you do this? And him just getting so frustrated with me because he got the N64 on launch. I got it about a year or 2 later. So he had played Mario. He was on to other stuff. But man, I was all about it. I got all the stars, got on the roof, found Yoshi. I mean, you name it. I spent countless hours with this game. Stupid amount of time with this game. And it's still fun and holds up to this day. But I will say the castle has a different feel to it nowadays. It's kind of got this creepy, eerie vibe to it in a sense, because you're the only one in there outside of like Toad in certain areas. I don't know, it's just kind of weird in that sense, but absolutely love this game. One of my favorites of all time. And coming in at number 1, my most played game in the 90s growing up has to be Pokemon Blue for Game Boy. Yes, I put so much time into this game, leveling up my entire team, finding Indigo, Mew, all the secrets in the game, trading all the Pokemon, hooking up link cables on the bus. I mean, I remember going to my friend's house, and we lived in Maryland at the time. I wouldn't go anywhere without my Game Boy and this game and the strategy guide most of the time. And we would just sit there on the couch and just play this game for hours until our batteries died, trying to find this Pokemon, trying to find that one. My buddy had the red version, I had the blue version, so we'd get the link cable and trade the ones we couldn't find. And man, I just adore this game. I still go back and play it sometimes just on my phone. You know, if we're on a trip like that and I don't have my Switch with me or whatever, I need to get a physical copy of it. It's kind of lame how you can't even play them on the Switch. I mean, you can emulate them on a lot of things, but I do want a physical copy of this particular game because I have so much nostalgic for it, so much love. Haven't really kept up with Pokemon since then. Blue, yellow, red, crystal, ruby, sapphire, all those Pokemon games are the ones I grew up on and absolutely loved them. So I had to put it at number 1. Might be a little surprising to some people because I don't really ever talk about Pokemon, but hope you enjoyed this list. I would love to hear about what ranking you have. You know, if you grew up in the 90s or the 80s, or even nowadays, you know, give me your ranking based on what you grew up on. And I just thought this would be fun to kind of walk down memory lane and talk about some of my most played games growing up as a 90s kid. You know, some of these aren't my favorite games of all time, you would say, but these are the games I put the most time and energy and just logged a lot of hours into. So make sure you give this video a like. I really appreciate it. Helps me out as a smaller channel. Consider subscribing as well, because we're just getting started, baby. It's 2025. Let's do this. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay blessed, my friends.